important modcasts start with a sing. I can't do my Batman voice in this position. All important That's still not my Batman. What's wrong with my Batman? There we go.
And speaking of bats and mans, I'm Wudge.
I'm Slime.
I'm Batman.
No, you're not. You're John_Smith.
I'm not jogging. I'm Batman. Because I'm awesome. And that means I'm Batman.
And I'm Lego Master.
We shall spoil everything and anything from the LEGO Batman movie. So if you haven't seen it, just go watch it.
Biggest spoiler of them all. I can't believe that Bruce Wayne's parents died.
Oh yeah, that was the real twist.
It's really sad.
The referential humor, I thought, could very well stand on its own. Like, you didn't need to know the reference to find it funny. You know, like at the start, they have this whole sequence with all the obscure Batman villains. It was like Mustard Man or something. I don't even know.
Condiment
King.
That's right. There's just a lot of instances of that, where it's like, if you did get the reference, it would enhance the experience of viewing that. But even without it, you still can find something enjoyable. What did you guys think about the references to old Batman, or even the newer films? Like, they had a lot of that, but it was like well integrated with the plot, which was cool. Like the Batman vs. Superman movie. Superman actually does show up in that whole scene with the Justice League. It's intertwined. So I felt that was good. That's how you do it.
Yeah, I feel like the movie does a great job of intertwining every single aspect of Batman, of DC as a whole, and to a certain extent, just pop culture in general. Wrapping them all up together. And a movie that doesn't really make any kind of logical sense, but it really doesn't have to. In the LEGO Batman movie, everything is canon. Movies from...
Everything is canon.
Everything's canon when you're Greg Fusty.
Yes.
The LEGO Batman movie, like you were saying, it does a great job of tying everything together in a way that, like, okay, you might not have seen, like, the 1990 or whatever Batman movie, but you know enough about it to, like, you know, the thing that everyone commented on was the bat nipples, which... that's just something that everyone knows.
Yeah.
There was no Batman movie in 1990, and the one you're talking about came out in 1997. Get good, scrub.
Okay, I was saying the 90s, as in the years from 1990 to 1999.
Well, then your enunciation wasn't very good. You still need to get good.
Fine. It was more than I was expecting, because I will admit, going into the movie, I was a little bit concerned, because following up the LEGO movie, the LEGO movie is great. I think everyone agrees that the LEGO movie is great. But really, the way that the LEGO movie shined, in my opinion, was going to be a bit hard to pull off in a LEGO Batman movie, where the focus of the LEGO movie is so much on LEGO, and like building and all that stuff. In the LEGO Batman movie, you're having to focus on Batman, so is that going to lose the charm? And I don't think it did, personally. In my opinion, it's less of a LEGO movie and more of a movie that uses LEGO as a medium, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, it definitely doesn't have a heavy emphasis on LEGO, at least as far as, well, okay, parts of the movie do, especially the finale. Like, that was pretty much the whole fact that, you know, LEGO World does come into play, but for the most part, it's just a feature of the aesthetic of the world.
It's a great aesthetic because what it does do is it ties together all these different things that shouldn't tie together, like the Eye of Sauron, Godzilla, and British robots. They all work together because they're all made of LEGO, so it's all unifying aesthetically.
Although there is a bit of mixed media when Batman is, like, watching real-life actors in that, what was it even? I don't even remember.
I have to go respond to the bat signal. See you never, losers. But seriously, I have to go.
Would you like to say anything, John, before you leave?
It was a good movie. It was probably, I think, the best straight-up comedy that I've seen that's come out in the last 10, 15 years, maybe more. The thing about how he has a family or whatever was a nice little touch. Though actually, that was also kind of in the Joel Schumacher movies. It just wasn't done very well in those. But yeah, peace out, I guess.
All right.
Batman out.
Ever since probably the original Batman Lego sets in like 2006, like when the original Lego Batman sets came out, I've been very interested in the Batman mythos. Not necessarily DC at large. I'm not really a big fan of pretty much any DC properties except Batman, but I'm a really, really big fan of Batman and all of his different villains. The entire Batman Rogues Gallery is one of my favorite things in comics. And even though I haven't read a ton of comics, I haven't seen a ton of the TV shows. I really would like to see the animated series at some point. Going into this movie, I was going in as someone who knows a fair bit of Batman, but especially likes Batman a lot. And I think that this is the kind of movie that, as well as being a great comedy, is just an absolutely bonkers tribute. I guess, like you said, Slime, there are so many references. A lot of them can kind of be taken by people who aren't that familiar with Batman. Like, people will be able to laugh at some of the ridiculous rogues. And the thing is, those villains work so well in LEGO. Because of how kind of silly and quirky the LEGO minifigure is, it almost makes all of these absolutely absurd comic book villains work a lot better together. In general, there's just a lot of little references to different aspects of the Batman mythos and of like the locations, characters, nicknames, of course, vehicles. Every time something came up that I recognized, my heart fluttered a little bit and I was like, oh, they have really done their research with this movie and it is awesome.
Whoever's working on the LEGO movies, like, they know their stuff and they are huge nerds.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
But more than that, like John said, this movie also has heart to it. It also has a very strong positive message about family. Because Batman in this movie, even though he's sort of playing off of the LEGO movies, self-obsessed jerk, but at the same time, he's a very good vehicle for this kind of closed off, almost you might say traumatized superhero. It's something that I've seen done in some Batman material before, this kind of idea that what makes Batman Batman and why he does what he does, his motivations. And this movie takes that and applies it to this idea of family, of the importance of opening yourself up to others, of caring for others, and of being part of something larger than yourself. And I think that it elevates this movie beyond just like a fun movie that like has a bunch of cool references to something that is really fun. And I don't know about you guys, but it also just made me really want to pick up some bricks as soon as I got home and start building stuff. But it also has heart to it, and it's something that it's nice to see. And it's not really something I was expecting going into it.
It seems like with the LEGO movies, the fact that it is LEGO allows them to sort of bring in a lot of their licensed themes into their film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the LEGO movie was kind of that. There was just a huge number of licensed themes within the world that would interact with each other. The LEGO Batman movie, the way that it incorporates that, I thought was pretty good. The whole Phantom Zone thing.
For me, the whole idea with the Phantom Zone and all of these uber villains, initially I was kind of struck by like, oh, it's just everyone from Dimensions. I think I might have seen like some leaks or reports that certain villains were in the movie. I remember seeing that like the Wicked Witch of the West was in the movie. I think it's really because of Dimensions. I've been following Dimensions a bit. I've been seeing all the new licenses they've been building up. And in my brain, I was like, oh, okay, they're just bringing in all the licenses from Dimensions. Even though I wasn't overly fond of bringing all of these licenses into Batman initially, as it went on, I was kind of like, this is kind of crazy. It's kind of insane, but it works. It was very enjoyable. And if Dimensions' main legacy was getting all of these licenses into the LEGO Batman movie, then great.
I don't know if it was actually that Dimensions was what caused all of these things to be in here, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly sure that a good portion of the villains were Warner Brothers properties.
Oh, I actually didn't think about that.
Yeah, Warner Brothers Animation is the one that published it. It's not really like that huge of a thing, but I think there was a few in there that weren't, and I think that's the British robots, which is why they're called British robots.
Yeah, because Dalek is copyrighted, if I remember right.
Yeah, copyrighted very, very heavily.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever.
I never stopped to consider at any point before watching the LEGO Batman movie and think, oh, LEGO could do this. They could bring in stuff other than Batman. My thought was just, everything that we've seen so far is Batman villains. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Batman villains. And the fact that it wasn't just the Batman villains, and in fact, those play a very small role. The fact that that was the case, I really like that, because the Batman villains, they're great. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, every single other bit of Batman media has focused on those villains, and they've kind of been done to death in a certain way. I just thought it was very refreshing that they opted not to go with the cliche Batman villains and instead decide to just break the rules and just go ahead and do their own thing.
Well, I mean, like, the Joker is still still
Well,
like...
I mean,
like,
other
is
than
a-
the Joker,
yeah, okay,
but at
other
the
than
same
him,
time,
but-
you can't really have a Batman movie without the Joker. Like, the whole premise of the movie is there is no Batman without Joker. Like, you think of Batman, you think of Joker. The two are so completely intertwined that there's not really any way you can separate them.
Yeah, and the way they play it off, it's like an inverted love story. Basically, it's a hate story, which is pretty good.
So speaking of villains, let's talk about another villain in another movie that's coming out in September that we'll probably talk about in September.
Yeah.
We are, of course, talking about the LEGO Movie 2 coming out
Yeah.
fairly soon. It's coming out next year, I think.
Wait, really? Like the
Oh,
Lego...
2019. Never mind.
For a second there, I thought you were just joshing me, but
No,
alright.
it's an actual thing.
It's actually coming out.
actual-
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've known this for like years now.
Okay, I don't really keep up with the news or anything like that. I don't really know things. So it is actually getting like a proper sequel.
It's getting a sequel of some sort. Whether or not it's a proper sequel or not, I don't know.
It does kind of concern me. The whole recent trend of having expanded universes, the LCU, I guess is what's going to be called the LEGO Cinematic Universe. I am kind of concerned about how they would even handle a LEGO Movie 2. I guess it's just my aversion to sequels. I just really don't like how Hollywood is always pushing out sequel after sequel. And it seems like with LEGO that there's more you could probably do.
Okay, Waj, if you were currently sitting in the chair of LEGO head of movie making, you're the person who decides what the next 5 LEGO movies are. You decide, I don't want to see the LEGO Movie 2 because sequels are boring and nobody likes them, so we're gonna get this new movie based off of a different LEGO IP. What would you make it?
At least the way that I think that they're approaching it is pretty much all of the movies centered around comedy with like that bit of heart, trademark heart at the end. I wouldn't want to say Star Wars, even though that would make them a ton of money.
Oh, absolutely. That would print money.
But that seems like almost a bit too obvious, and as well, it just plays into the whole oversaturation of the
Star Wars.
actual Star Wars movies coming out, which we already talked about. Too much saturation. I wonder if Scooby-Doo, an actual... Well, I mean, Scooby-Doo is coming up with a movie, isn't it? Like, it's
Yeah.
Project Scoob or whatever.
The Hanna-Barbera universe.
But no, seriously, like, I could see a Lego Scooby-Doo movie working.
I would absolutely love to see a Lego Scooby-Doo movie.
Some of these lend themselves a lot better to becoming LEGO movies, and I was wondering if they were to go for a bit of a different demographic, would a Lego Disney movie work? Either focusing on, kind of the original Disney cartoon universe or Disney princesses. Would that work?
It seems like they do try to focus on that crossover aspect of their licensed themes, and it's like, with Disney, you could cross over the entire Disney universe, man. It would be crazy. I don't know, the movie starts in black and white, starts as an animated thing, and it moves on through the ages.
Oh, that would be
With
amazing.
Stuff. It's like, they could do a lot with a Lego Disney movie. They'd print money. I could see that working very well if that was a thing. But yeah, Lego Movie 2, I don't know.
I feel like it could go very well, it could go very badly. But I think with LEGO's track record, as they've got 2 movies, I fully expect the LEGO Ninjago movie is gonna be good. Assuming that it's not, then my faith is gonna go down a little bit. If it does well, then I think I trust LEGO enough to make a good sequel. Because good sequels do exist. They're not as common as they could be, but they do exist.
Especially if we're going off of the LEGO movie's track record. The LEGO movie and the LEGO Batman movie both had a kind of twist that we weren't expecting. So maybe we're kind of not sure about the LEGO movie 2, but it's going to bring out another different twist. It's going to make us all go, oh, this movie's awesome.
That sort of idea that there's almost like an expected twist from the track record of 2 movies, it does make me think about what are they planning for this LEGO Ninjago movie?
Oh, like the twist? Ooh.
Yeah, if there is even going to be one. It is going to be interesting because it seems like, at least what we can discern from the other movies is that they do try to focus on a lot of self-referential type humor. And with Ninjago, there is like a bit of lore. It seems like it's pretty much all retcon in the movie. So I really don't know if they are even going to... Well, I mean, I'm sure probably going to mention it or like have something in the background or something like that.
If you're wondering how they're going to tie in, like, the real world, as I like to call it, as far as, like, mainstream media, with the LEGO Batman movie, it's so easy because everyone knows Batman. I think the way that they're going to do that with the LEGO Ninjago movie is they're going to tie in martial arts type movies. Like, classic Jackie Chan style, like, like Karate Kid, stuff like that. I think that they're just going to tie in a lot of stuff for that for, parents and people who have watched those movies. It seems like the plot line is going to be focusing mostly on Lloyd, which is to be expected because Lloyd is now basically the main character because he's the green ninja and that makes him important. And also the fact that, there's the whole relationship in the trailer where the main villain is his dad.
That aspect was kept from the series. It's good. So it seems like that'll be the main focus is Lloyd and his relationship with his dad, Garmadon, which actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of a through line between the LEGO movies.
That's been noted.
That kind of dynamic.
It's all about family relationships.
And specifically the father and son relationship, with Batman and Robin.
Does someone at LEGO have a problem?
I think they have daddy issues anyway. Well, so I wonder how they're gonna work in that large cast of characters into the film. Zane seems much more attuned to being a comic relief character than the show because he's not at all a comic relief character, mostly.
If I had to take a guess, I'd say that Zane is going to get relegated to just being like a beep boop, I'm a robot, funny comic character. Because, it's very difficult to get in, that much character development for 6 main characters in a movie that's only 2.5 hours long. As it stands now, we've only got 1 trailer, and that's purely about Lloyd. And that makes me think that the entire movie is going to be about Lloyd. But I think if more trailers come out and they really push this whole, team aspect, I think that would be a great way to tie in the other characters and make them not feel extraneous.
Right, yeah, and I mean, they did have that bit in the trailer where they're all riding their mechs and stuff, and so I imagine the conclusion where they just have a huge mech battle. I do wonder if they're even going to try and, connect other licensed themes with the Ninjago universe. I think they might not. Maybe. I don't know. I think it just doesn't really fit, at least in my mind. But I'm sure they could figure out a way to finagle it. Because Ninjago does have its own Shadow Realm. But then at that point, it's just sort of shoehorning it in for the sake of licenses.
They're not going to do the same thing. If they're going to bring in licensed themes, it's going to be through a different way. Which I think they will. It's hard to see how they're going to do it now. But if you had told me 5 months ago that, the LEGO Batman movie, they're going to bring in, the Eye of Sauron and the Wicked Witch of the West and Godzilla, and they're all going to be the main villains of the movie, then I would have been that doesn't sound right. They have no reason to bring in those villains, because there's plenty of Batman villains that we've seen and that are in sets, but they did it anyway. So I think that the LEGO Ninjago movie is going to do something to that extent, where they're going to bring in other stuff. I don't know if it will be focused on that as much, though.
There's another Bionicle reference. I will literally flip a table. Okay, the LEGO movie, they had that whole thing where Wildstyle was talking about all the other realms. The LEGO Batman movie did have a really quick one that I missed, and I'm sure a lot of people did.
Yeah, I honestly missed it. I only heard about it after the fact.
In the background, there was a movie theater, and one of the movies that was showing was the LEGO Bionicle movie or something, or the Bionicle movie.
It actually says the LEGO Bionicle M, which a lot of people are taking to mean movie, myself included. However, it is worth noting that the other references shown are all mostly A-fold type references, 2 shades of Blay being the term for the newer shade of bluish gray. Stud's Knot, which is obviously Stud's Knot on top. I've heard that the Bionicle M, it seems initially like it means Bionicle Movie, but at the same time it could very easily be the Bionicle Man, a reference to the Bionic Man.
That would kind of fit with the movies paying homage to all sorts of more classic films and film genres and stuff. But regardless of what it was in the Batman movie, you don't want to see it again in the Ninjago movie. Is that it, Wash?
Yeah, I'm for anyone, I suppose, that thinks that a LEGO Bionicle movie is a possibility, I would say that it's a non-zero chance, but that chance is probably very close to 0. There's a few things about it, though. If they were going to try and do a LEGO Bionicle movie, which actually one of the people on the message boards had suggested this topic, this guy whose name is in all caps, Rackrun Duel. He also made the thumbnail for this episode, so shout out to him. He wanted to just hear our thoughts on this idea of a LEGO Bionicle movie and how it might be handled. It's very hard to see them do another one sort of in the style of Technic sets, mainly because if they called it the LEGO Bionicle Movie, I think it would throw people off, even though Bionicle is very well known, or by, well, some people.
A lot of people still remember Bionicle, and you can see that just the meme that was around in October. You could post a Bionicle and people would say, oh, that's a Bionicle. They wouldn't know the name, the year, or anything like that like we do, but they know it was a thing, and it was a pretty big thing that was all around.
I think if they did, and if like Bionicle came back, which I also think is slim chances, if it did come back in a system theme, like people have been talking about the whole Brickonicle thing, I don't know if I could see a LEGO Bionicle movie really working. Just thinking about what Bionicle's story is like I suppose it's also kind of similar to the Ninjago movie, where it's that team dynamic of people that have elemental powers.
The difference with Bionicle and Ninjago is that Ninjago is currently LEGO's most popular and iconic themes. Bionicle once held that title, but it has since moved on from that. And of course, when we're talking about any LEGO movie, we're also having to consider the sets that go alongside the movie, because those also are a big part of it.
And that's sort of the reason why I would think that if Bionicle was to come back, then they do it in system, as system is what people associate usually with LEGO, and that would probably get more people to buy it than G2, Maybe. What would it even be centered around? The actual Bionicle movies, the Mask of Light, and it's like, oh yes, and find the seventh Toa, that's the goal, and at the end, KEWL becomes Takanuva.
The most important thing with any movie that LEGO is going to be doing is to look at it from the external perspective, not from the perspective of a Bionicle fan. Like, looking at the LEGO Ninjago movie from the perspective of a Ninjago fan, it's like they're changing the voice actors, they're changing the style, they're changing the setting, they're retconning everything. Like, what's up with that? It's terrible. But from a outsider's perspective, it's LEGO's most popular theme right now. All you really need to know about it is that it's multiple colored ninjas, they spin around, they do ninja stuff, and the green one is the most important. That's pretty much all you need to know about Ninjago. So with Bionicle, I think it's a similar thing where you just have to have the 6 main characters fighting Makuta.
Of course, you gotta have the daddy issues. That's what it is. Yeah, Nui, his relation to the Toa or something like that. I don't know.
They could play off the whole brotherly dynamic between Madanui and Makuta. Because, yeah, the thing with Bionicle, because love isn't canon, it loses a big part of what is kind of becoming the LEGO's brand, and what is a big part of these previous couple cinematic movies, which is the emphasis on family, like we were discussing earlier. And that's not really something that we've seen in Bionicle. Like, we've kind of seen it with, like, the brother and sister relationship with the Toa, and the whole Makuta as the evil brother of Madanui. There's things that they could do, but the LEGO movie and the LEGO Batman movie use minifigures as the main character avatars. Even though they have such limited articulation with how they're animated in these movies, they lend themselves really well to relatable characters, mostly because of the facial animation that they do. You can't do that with Bionicle. They tried all sorts of different stuff with like the Miramax movies and Legend Reborn, but that would be really difficult to translate into something that you can actually buy in a set, right? Because, the LEGO movies are supposed to drive set sales, and I personally can't see how they could do Bionicle characters, like you said, Slime, even the idea of construction, how that would animate is weird. On an aesthetic level, from the point of view of just having characters that are relatable, that have facial expressions that are relatable, I don't see how Bionicle can really pull that off, at least in its current form that we've seen in G1 and G2. And then if you throw that away, you're basically talking about completely rebooting and reworking the franchise, which I don't think is the point of this thought exercise.
Say if they were going to bring Bionicle back, of course it would be another soft reboot, right?
Oh, yeah.
If not a hard reboot.
Probably a hard reboot.
If it was to be in system sets, do you think it would still be recognizable to the everyday person who is only heard of Bionicle because, it was a thing back when they were a kid?
I asking the big
Like,
questions.
is it recognizable enough?
I really don't think it would. At that point, you're changing Bionicle so much.
What if they had masks that looked almost identical?
Then you run into the same problem as with construction figures, in that it's very difficult to have characters that show personality and expression on static plastic heads.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because while you do have masks, that's not the only thing that they'd have. They'd have eyes and stuff, body language. The way I'd say that they do it would be through through doing what G2 did in a few different ways, which was, the eye blinking thing, which granted does not give quite as much emotion. But I mean, look at Ninjago. When they're wearing their masks, the only thing showing is their eyes, which granted, the LEGO Ninjago movie is not going to be them with their masks on all the time, because having the mouth shown gives a lot more emotion. But at the same time, I think it could be done. You can show emotion through that limited amount of space.
I don't know if we'd come back to this idea of a LEGO Bionicle movie. I think we might talk about it, or bring up the idea again when we do get to talking about the LEGO Ninjago movie when it comes out. Then we'll see how much of our predictions had come true.
We'll see in a few months.
Like our dreams of Bionicle coming. No, it's not gonna come back. That was the Mudcast. Ooh, we did it. Great. There we go.